What's up, Anchor listeners for the Common Sense Show TV? What's going on, man? Listen, real quick, I just want to ask you a question. Have any of you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to start this podcast, get it off the ground, I've been on Anchor for a couple of years now. I had a lot of questions about it. How do I record an episode? How do I get my podcast on Apple Music and Spotify and Google and all that good stuff? And how do I make money from it? So the answer to every one of those questions that I asked myself was simply this particular platform at anchor.fm. Now, Anchor, you can do everything here, one stop for recording, hosting, and distributing all of your podcasts because you don't have to really go through a middleman. It's all done right here on Anchor. Best of all, it's 100% free, you guys, and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor is going to match you with great sponsors so you can get paid to podcast. So eventually, I'm going to get paid to do this. I tell you. Now, I use Anchor simply because I broadcast the Common Sense Show TV right here on Anchor, and I distribute that through Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google, Castbox, Radio Public, right here on the internet. So if you guys want to start a podcast, make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. To join me and other podcasters on Anchor and this diverse community of podcasters already using this particular platform. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
Good morning, Common Sense TV show listeners. What's happening? Your boy is back. It has been a little bit since I've been on Anchor and doing the podcast. I'll tell you, going through a little bit of an emotional roller coaster since the last time I've done a podcast. But I said I am going to attempt to be a better person and be more consistent with my recordings, my website, my live I do on Facebook, all of that. So what we're going to talk about this morning is about being consistent. The struggle that I had for the longest time was I just did not know how to be consistent. I know that I wanted to go somewhere in this life. I know I wanted to be successful at a certain point in my life. Like I wanted to be, when I set out doing social media live streams a couple of years ago, when I started out on Periscope, I wanted to be this big, successful. Every time I hit go live, I got 1,000 people in my scope or in my live stream. And it just never happened. What I found out later is the reason why that it wasn't like that was because I just wasn't consistent. I would do a live. I wouldn't do another live for 2 weeks later. I would do just like with Anchor, I do a podcast. I don't do a podcast for a month later. And I'm realizing that that I'm losing out. I'm losing out on viewers. I'm losing out on being able to help somebody. But along with that came with the mindset change of it doesn't matter who listens. Well, it does matter who listens, but it doesn't matter the number of folks who listen. It doesn't matter how many people are in my live stream. It doesn't matter if there are one or two in my live streams, and if one of those people is able to be touched by something that I'm saying, then I must continue to do it. So what I want to do in this particular life, because what happened to me was that I got a wake-up call just the other day, and I was told that in order for me to get to where I need to be, I have to be more consistent. Now, even though that's a simple message, and some people can kind of dismiss that and say, well, it's not that big of a deal. But for me, that was the wake-up call that I needed to know or to learn that there is someone or someone's with a Z or an S, depends where you're from, that is actually waiting to hear my voice. There's someone who is waiting to hear what I have to say. Now, after that particular wake-up call, I did a live on Facebook last night, and I was talking about, or I spoke about, consistency in your life. It doesn't matter whether it's social media, whether it's about business, your personal life. If there's a place that you're trying to get to in this life, you must be consistent in the fight. Not necessarily putting up with different things, but be consistent in the fight. If your desire is to be at a certain place, if you desire to be a CEO, if you desire to be an entrepreneur, if you desire to be an author, or whatever it is, whatever the struggle is, we must be consistent in the fight for that. If you want to be a number one salesman, if you want to be a number one salesperson, woman, whatever, if you want to be number one, the fight has to be consistent. What you cannot do is allow one moment of fear, one moment of doubt to cloud any of that judgment. And see, that was my struggle. I would let fear get in the way. There were people, when I started out in live streaming, there were a certain number of people that I followed on Periscope that followed me, supported me. But because of the inconsistency that I had, these folks have surpassed me by far and away. And I look at them and I say to myself, why, oh, why could I not be in the same genre as them? Why am I not being invited to do conferences? Why am I not being invited on shows and things of that nature? But I realized that the reason why I'm not that way, or the reason why I'm not in that place, is because I was not totally inconsistent. I was consistent with it. And so for that, I missed out. So I'm going to say this, and in closing, be consistent in the fight, whatever it is, whatever the progress, whatever the process is that you need to get to, be consistent in that fight. Until next time, you guys, listen, don't forget to go to the website, thecommonsenseshowtv.com. Scroll out to the very bottom of that page. Go ahead and subscribe. Shoot me an email. Let me know that you're listening and what I'm saying to you is of some substance. If you are on YouTube, make sure you go to youtube.com. I do not have a customized link yet because I don't have my 100 followers, but you can do a search for The Common Sense Show TV and I will pop up. Go ahead and subscribe, click the link, share it. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.